Around the time I got married, our family went on vacation to Rehoboth Beach. It was kind of like a family thing. My siblings and my mother, we all went to this beach house that one of the in-law folks who married into our family, his uncle owned. So we had a little vacation there, and one night we were watching this movie, I guess we rented. And I didn't pay much attention, but because I really don't even know the title or what happened in that movie other than what I'm about to describe now. It was apparently a movie made in France. It might have been a movie on public television. It wasn't a movie rented or anything. Anyway, what happened was this man, he got this farm, and when he bought the farm, he did not know that there was a spring with water somehow hidden, like under the house itself somehow, or some part of the house. And he got this land, and he couldn't grow anything on it. I think he was a farmer. He had no water, and the whole time there was this spring that was there all the time, and he never knew it. Well, that symbolically is like some of the experiences I've had in my life. So here are the two experiences, okay? One was in 1976 when I went on a roughly 4-month backpacking tour through Europe by myself. I wanted to stay in Italy. I wanted to stay in Italy and work in Italy. I didn't want to go back to the United States. I was staying with the younger brother of my Italian grandfather in his Rome apartment. Now, I did not know at the time, but that grandfather of mine, he was my biological father. So this man who seemed to be my great uncle, he wasn't my great uncle, he was my uncle. Well, I stayed in his apartment with him for about a week or more. And I gotta say, I'm the only family member who ever did anything like that, which speaks the closeness between me and him. This man, this Italian man, who was actually my uncle that I didn't know. I didn't know he was my uncle. I thought he was my great uncle, but he wasn't. Now, I was staying with him, and I wanted to stay in Italy, not go home to the United States, but I didn't even think to ask him, okay, about how I might do that. I didn't. For a lot of reasons, okay. There was a lot of conflict, discord between his part of the family and our part of the family in America. And I hadn't thought it out at the time, but it was because my Italian grandfather had left Italy and not maintained contact with his family. He just allowed it to vanish. So when contact was made years and years later, first by my parents when they made a trip to Italy when I was about 5 years old, and then by me when I was 22, this part of the family was completely alienated in many ways from ours, okay? Now, for reasons of that nature, I did not ask people like that who felt this discord between their part of the family and our part of the family in America. I didn't feel comfortable in asking him how could I stay here, because I was staying in the apartment with his uncle, and I hadn't asked him to stay. I appeared at his door one day and then asked him, can I stay with you? And he said okay, but obviously it was going to look like I was way overdoing things if I was going to say, I'd like to stay in Italy, and so when they hear this from me, right, what are they thinking? What is this guy doing taking advantage of his out later in life, like roughly, 40 years later, I find out that because this relative of mine in Italy was my grandfather's brother, I probably could have got Italian citizenship through him in like a week with his assistance, and he wouldn't have had to pay any money or do anything other than vouch for me as his descendant and show documents that he was Italian and my grandfather was his brother and so on. He probably could have done that easily, but I didn't even think to ask him. So I learned roughly 40 years later that there is a law where I could have claimed Italian citizenship by descent from my Italian grandfather, but at that time, I did not know there was such a law. I didn't ask anyone in the family who could easily have helped me, and so I did not even learn about that kind of thing till 40 years later. See what I'm saying? My house was built over a spring of water, and I went on to farmland and I had no water, but I didn't know. My house was built over a spring. If I only knew where it was, I could have got plenty of water there. I didn't know. So here's the other thing that happened. It's just like that. When I graduated from the University of Maryland, in fact, at age 22, I was looking for a job downtown, right? And I couldn't find one. So I decided to stay in graduate school, or to go to graduate school, and I got my master's degree, and once again, I could not find a job downtown. Well, when I was in graduate school, right after graduating from the University of Maryland, I lived at 1301 15th Street, which is like 2 blocks up the street from the Washington Post, okay? And then when I graduated with my MA, I moved a block away to 1500 Mass Avenue, which is even closer to the Washington Post, but here it is. Right across the street from the Washington Post was the International Labor Union that I would get a job at after my life had been destroyed, in part because I had been unable to find jobs at these crucial times of my life. No job at all I was able to find, and yet, after my life had been destroyed this way, I'd been declared to be crazy and the rest of it, a handicapped job agency gets me a job with this International Labor Union that was there at the same place when I was looking for a job, right when I graduated from the University of Maryland at age 22. I didn't know it was there at all. And when I got my master's degree and lived roughly 2 blocks from the same International Labor Union, I did not know it was there at all. And for that reason, I ended up being unemployed at, like I say, crucial times of my life, which brought me under incredible attack by members of my family, and it brought me all kinds of conflict in my life, being unemployed like that when I'm about the age of 40. I get a job at this place and I work all the way to retirement, okay? But it had been there all the time and I had never known. And there were a few people who started work right then, like 1978 when I got my master's. The lady who was my supervisor and worked there all those years, 1978 until, well, I started there in 1996. Okay, that's almost 20 years later. So by the time I had got to place. She'd already been there about 20 years. So her life had been completely different. She was a recent college graduate like me, and she found that place. And by the time I got there, she was a supervisor. Had a pretty high, important job, but there I was, getting hired as a severely diseased man, hired by that labor union because they would get a tax break for hiring a severely handicapped worker. And I got the lowest paid, lowest status position among the 200 employees approximately that worked there. That's how I started out at around the age of 40. Well, those are my two experiences like that one in that movie, where there's a spring and the farmer does not know it's there. He has no water to farm his land, but the water is right there and he doesn't know it. Here's a quick footnote to that discussion I just had about having a spring on my land that I did not know was there and not being able to farm my land because I had no water. Well, it's happened that this woman appears to have fallen for me, okay, and let me know that she likes me a lot. She even seems to want to marry me. She likes me that much. And I have been able to get in touch with this woman. Sounds bizarre, right? Well, it seems that one night, this woman came to my house and she stopped her car in front of my house and got out of that car and stood on my front lawn and was pausing there, possibly hoping that I would come out and ask her, hey, you having car trouble of some kind, and find out it's her. This woman who said as far as I can see, she was in love with me and wanted to marry me. I would have met her that night, but I didn't. Why? Because I didn't recognize her. And, well, that's the main reason. Because I didn't recognize her, I didn't want to go out and have anything to do with her. She was a stranger, and she was a kind of stranger that could make me very fearful. It's a long discussion, but for that reason, I did not dare go out and try to see if there was anything I could do to help her. She stopped her car in front of my house as if she had car trouble, but I didn't believe any of that, and yet that was the woman I've been wanting to meet so badly now for 3.5 years, but there she was right on my front lawn, and that was over a year ago. I didn't meet her that night because I didn't recognize her. It's kind of like what I was just saying. I got a spring on my land I didn't know was there. For that I've suffered greatly. Okay, here is the clincher for these experiences, okay? Experiences where I could have got something very important to me in life, accepted in a certain way that it would have made my life really happy, okay? Because I didn't know what I needed to know in these instances. I did not get these things that could have made me very happy. I didn't get Italian citizenship, so I could have stayed and worked in Italy the way I wanted to. And then I didn't get a job when I graduated from college. This resulted in catastrophic consequences for me. Well, what did these experiences symbolize? They symbolize the ultimate mystery that I finally figured out when I became an old man. From the age of about 14 on, when I'd been a star in my family and in the world, getting awards of all kinds, living happily among friends, relatives, my life started to fall to pieces for unaccountable reasons. And it went on falling apart until it became an absolute tragedy. And I was in that tragedy all the way up until the age of now. I'm still in it. Now, the society was blaming me for this tragedy, saying that I had an incurable disease that had brought this tragedy on me. But I would discover as an old man that was not true at all. There was an invisible source to this tragedy. And what was the invisible source that I would not discover until I was around 65 years old? The invisible source for this tragedy was a crime that had been being committed on me over and over without my knowledge while I was growing up. And as well as I can reconstruct this crime, the crime was I was being male raped while asleep by my medical doctor father, who was not my biological father. This circumstance giving this man justification in his mind for these rapes, since I was someone living in his mouth in his house that he had sired. This was a child that was not his, like a devil in his house, and so this justified these rapes. And the way he committed these rapes, as far as I can reconstruct, would be that he used ether that he got from the hospital where he worked to keep me asleep when I was already asleep. And he had me etherized this way, and however else he might have drugged me, male raped me. Now I went through life without knowing that these crimes had been committed on me. Unfortunately, I've been able to reconstruct that having been victimized this way, although I was not consciously aware of it, these crimes somehow made me look a certain way to others that I was not. And this other way that I looked got me in for treatment that was completely inappropriate to the person I was. So there was the hidden source of my tragedy. And it was there all the time. And I never knew it.
We want justice.